Now, depending on the type of machines that you are trying to wipe and image, you might find that Grub does not work properly on Legacy, for all of them. The alternative is to use pxelinux, which is much more successful and boots a larger number of, or a larger variety of computers. So I'm going to show you how to do pxelinux for Legacy, and you get it from here, which is this website here. The latest is 603, and notice that was done in 2014, which is about 10 years ago, so, compared with the date of this recording. So unfortunately UEFI has really taken off since then, or been developed since then, and UEFI does not work with syslinux, so carry on using Grub for that one. I'll show you the problems with UEFI if I have time at the end of the video. Meanwhile, get that, unzip it, and then start copying the files. This is for Legacy. Make a directory pxelinux and pxelinux BIOS to keep BIOS separate from UEFI. And then copy these modules one at a time from the unzipped version of syslinux. The next thing you need is syslinux's config file. That's called default, so we'll just get that. So here's default. It's going to be in the comments, so you don't have to copy it, take much notice of it. So we go down to the Windows section. Here's the Windows section. So we're going to use wimboot, which is part of the iPXE package, not part of pxelinux, and we've used that before with the Grub menu. So this is exactly the same as the Grub menu, and that'll start Windows 10 installers. And the last thing to do is to reconfigure dhcp to serve up pxelinux. Now, there's many ways of doing this, but at the moment there's the default booting to Grub. You could comment that out and uncomment something like this. Oh, by the way, this file is also going to be in the comments, which will load the pxelinux BIOS version into the PXE pre-execution environment. Alternatively, and this is the way this particular file is working, these particular cards, Intel, don't work very well with Grub. So for those, we're going to switch it to use the pxelinux there. Multiple ways of doing this. Don't forget to restart dhcp when you've changed this file. It doesn't reload automatically. Okay, it just remains to show you a quick boot into pxelinux Legacy. So here's a Legacy boot into pxelinux and the menu and the Windows 10 installs, which is a difficult bit really. Just let that run a bit. You'll see it starting up the WinPE environment. So that's working fine, and there's the menu starting, mounting the share. That's the install menu. Okay, so I'm now going to show you what happens with UEFI, which is slightly, unfortunately, less good. Okay, so here's the BIOS version, the Legacy version. And here's the UEFI version, so there's two different configuration files. They're completely separate. So the first way we could do this is to chain load using this command pxechain ipxe EFI. It will read its own configuration file and boot, just like it does with Grub. So here, and I'll put this URL in the comments, you notice there's a right at the bottom, almost the last thing, it's basically saying it doesn't work with syslinux.efi. Don't expect it to work in UEFI mode. And fair enough, true enough, it doesn't work. The alternative is to do exactly the same as we do in Grub, which is to basically start a Linux kernel and using the parameter wimboot, so it starts running wimboot, and that's what happens in Grub. That doesn't work either, and the reason is, and this is one of the support comments for wimboot by Michael Brown, who actually looks after iPXE, and he says can't relocate it bails out, and the problem is that it tries to load wimboot into memory which is already being used, and his final comment was there's a lot of trouble to make it work, and it's not worth it because pxelinux is not supported, or it's not being updated anymore, and because it does work with iPXE, there is a route around it. So I won't bother showing you the results of this because it's not terribly interesting, but if you do want to set it up yourself, this is what you have to do to get it to actually boot. And I'll put the section of the pxelinux menu, which is called default, in the comments so that you can try it yourself. It's possible sometime in the future somebody might fix. I actually think the chain loading one would probably be the answer, but don't hold your breath. Okay.